We have several items on our agenda tonight, first of which is a presentation about Sunset Acres Senior Apartments. I'll turn it over to Mr. Fearborn.
Thank you, Your Honor. I would ask Mr. Cataret to begin this process.
Thank you, sir. This evening, we're joined by Dan Sanders, who represents Mako Development Company. They are looking at developing an age-restricted senior community on property that is located north of 58 Highway between Johnston Parkway and what would be the extension of Sunset Lane. At one time, it was approved for the Raymore Senior Apartment development. The property's been rezoned for an apartment community. It's actually 10 acres just north of the Springing Up Daycare facility, if you're familiar with that. So he's here this evening to share a brief presentation about the project, and will specifically be asking for council support for an application he would like to file with the Missouri Housing Development Commission. So I will be broadcasting his presentations to your computers.
Okay.
Hello, my name is Dan Sanders, and I am with Mako Development Company, 111 North Main Street, Clarkton, Missouri is our business address. Mayor and council members, thank you for letting me address you tonight regarding our request for a resolution of support for Sunset Acres, a proposed senior community. Mako is a Missouri-based development community company, construction company, and management company. We have a large portfolio of senior and family properties throughout Missouri. And we are a family-owned company that started in the 1960s, building single-family homes, expanded in the 80s to multifamily, and we're a long-term owner of our properties. We look for communities like Raymore. It's thriving, it's growing, it's just got a good feel to it, and it's a great place, we think, for seniors to want to live. This is the elevation and rendering of the single-story garden-style buildings that we're proposing for Sunset Acres. We utilize a high percentage of brick to provide high-quality, long-term, low-maintenance, and an architectural design that is aesthetically pleasing and conforms to the surrounding neighborhood. This is the site which, as Jim explained to you, it is an R3B zoned location. It's approximately 10 acres located between Johnston Parkway and North Sunset Lane. It's immediately adjacent to it to the south is the Springing Up Daycare and Cornerstone Academy Private School.
Excuse me, Mr. Mayor, I'm not able to see the
You're not
presentation
able to
on
see
my
it?
computer.
Yeah, none
Looks
of
like
the rest of
several
these
others
are,
can't either.
I have it, but they don't, sorry. I was just all locked in here and not paying attention. Sorry about that. You can say it. Yeah. You guys don't count. Yeah. I think you can unlock it from there though. Yeah, those computers are locked up and not coming on at all, Jim. Mine is. There's
I apologize, I had them working right before the meeting.
Okay. I think he can open them all.
They need to be logged on.
Thank you. Sorry to interrupt.
Okay.
Okay.
Now we're rocking and rolling here. Sorry. Everybody up? Everybody up? Good? Okay. Sorry, sir, for the
Oh,
delay.
that's fine.
Please continue.
Technology, I know my grandkids are a lot better at it than I am.
If you could go back one slide so they could see the
Sure.
plotting where it's at.
This is the elevation and rendering, as I was explaining, with a high percentage of the brick that we, single-story garden-style apartments. This is the location, as Jim explained. This is 10-acre site between Johnston Parkway and North Sunset Lane, where the extension of North Sunset will be. Immediately adjacent to us to the south is the Springing Up Daycare and Cornerstone Academy Private School. Of course, south of that, of the daycare, is the Raymore Market Center. And under construction to the east is the Compass Health Facility. And there are many, many amenities, which you all know a lot better than I do, within walking distance of this site, including a beautiful Ox Ridge Park, which is easily accessible from this site and would be a great attraction for senior residents living at Sunset Acres. Sunset Acres is a proposed senior community for residents 55 years of age and older and handicapped persons. This is in conformity with the recorded use covenants which are attached to this property, which is my understanding were filed on this in 2012. Sunset Acres will have 60 single-story garden-style two-bedroom apartments and a community building. Each apartment will have a washer, dryer, range, microwave, refrigerator, dishwasher, disposal, central heat and air. And the outdoor areas on the site will have attractive landscaping. The common grounds will be enhanced with a gazebo, picnic area, and park benches. The buildings will be attractively designed, as I explained earlier, with brick exteriors. These are our typical senior apartments, 955 square feet of living space, include a front porch and a back patio with a 26 square foot storage closet. We include vinyl plank flooring in the kitchen, dining area, and living room, tile in the bathrooms and in the laundry rooms, and low pile carpet in the bedrooms. These are senior units, and the main reason we do this is we try to keep the tripping hazards to a minimum. These apartments are two-bedroom, and even though they're senior, they are two-bedroom because that is what the market is for seniors anymore. They want the second bedroom for sewing room, office, computer room. Even as they get older, many times they have health reasons where they need to sleep in separate bedrooms. A large community building for use by the residents who live at Sunset Acres will include a fully equipped kitchen area, commercial exercise equipment, large flat screen television, furnished living room area, and office and storage. 3 of the apartments will be completely accessible to physically handicapped persons, and 1 additional unit will be usable by those with hearing and visual impairments. And all of the common areas will be accessible, and all of the apartments will be designed utilizing the principles of universal design, which means they are all adaptable. They all have the lower switch plates, the higher plug-in plates, the lower countertops. So these are all, and they have the blocking in the walls, all can be adapted to the needs of the resident who lives there. This is the elevation and rendering of the community building. It's the interior of the community building. In our senior developments, these buildings are extremely active during the daytime. The exercise equipment is used extensively. Typically, there's card games, there's carry-in dinners, book clubs, sewing clubs. They're a very active daytime building, but again, these are seniors, and there's very little activity in the evenings in these buildings.
So the community building is truly a community building, not a management, an office management site where you'd have the property manager on board?
The property manager
have
has
the-
an office in there, but the general area is opened up for all the residents to come in and use.
Will the property manager be on site?
There will be a site
on
manager,
site?
yes.
Okay.
And we will look and hire either by contract or by employment a local person to be maintenance at the site too. 45 of these apartments will rent for approximately $650 per month. The residents who live in those apartments will have incomes restricted to a maximum of $41,280 for a couple, $36,120 for a single person. 6 of the apartments will be completely market rate and will have no income restrictions and rent for $800 a month. And 9 of the apartments will be set aside for seniors with special needs and will rent for $450 a month. This property does not include any rental assistance. The National Association of Home Builders Green Building Standards will be incorporated into the design and construction of these apartments, and upon completion, they will be certified by NAHB Green Professional. The incorporation of these standards into these buildings will provide residents with comfortable, economically energy-efficient homes. And the property also pays for the water, sewer, and trash. Financing to build these apartments will be provided by the Missouri Housing Development Commission if we are successful in our application. MHDC funds and tax credits are highly competitive, with community support being a critical factor in determining successful applicants. This makes support from the local community critical for success, and is our hope that you will approve a resolution of support for our application. Wanted to also bring these along. These are pictures of similar properties that are in the area at least. This is Eastwood Apartments in Kearney, Missouri. It's almost exactly the same design we're proposing here. These apartments, there's 55 units in this development. It's 3 blocks east of City Hall. When we built it a few years ago, it was immediately leased up. It's got a long waiting list. As a matter of fact, we went back to the city of Kearney upon request by the city manager, and we're now breaking ground up there this week on another 44 apartments of almost a similar design. They're on North Jefferson between the Dollar General and the Kearney Senior Center. And again, we anticipate that they'll be leased immediately upon construction completion.
Are those MHDC funded as well?
Yes, they are.
Okay.
This is too. This is Grandview Estates in Independence, Missouri. This is on Salisbury Road, just about 2 blocks west of 291. We built these several years ago. They immediately leased up with a long waiting list, and we just completed another development in Independence, similar with MHDC construction, just a little bit northwest of the Truman Library and Museum. And again, senior apartments leased up immediately, and we have a waiting list. This is a little different type of construction. This is in Sedalia, Missouri. This is a historic rehab of an old school, and adjacent next to it, we also built some new units. This was the gymnasium, which we converted into the community room. Again, it's a very active area, and the seniors use it a lot. Then this is just to give you an idea of what the typical interior finish is. This is actually either an accessible unit, or it's one of the universal design units in which the cabinet fronts were removed because somebody needed wheelchair accessibility. But we use high-grade cabinets, high-quality GE appliances, and like I say, a good vinyl plank flooring to finish the flooring. I'd be happy to answer any questions, and I thank you for letting me present to you tonight.
Thank you, sir. Any questions? Yes, Mr. Jacobson.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Sanders, for that presentation. I do have one. I had a couple of questions. One is on the lower income. I think you said 45 apartments would be income restricted. How does that?
54 are, but
54. Okay.
Yes, but, yeah.
So how does that? Do their assets play into that at all? If someone's got, a fairly large savings account, does that affect that particular restriction?
It's an imputed at, I don't even think I think it's like 0.5% interest on their assets, but it's mainly income driven. So we do have people that live in our units that do still have sold their house. They've still got some retirement savings. They've got some other things. So yes, they do have other means to live there.
Okay. And the other question I had was, and I have this question anytime we look at development, is do you guys do any research on need? I mean, if you're building out here, you obviously must have some information that this is a need.
Yes, our market studies indicate that this, As I was explaining tonight when I got here, this is just the type of community we look for. It's growing, it's thriving, it's where people want to be. I mean, just driving through your town tells a great story, and this is where people want to be, yes. And our market study showed that there is a big need here for additional senior housing.
Okay, thank you, sir. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
You bet. Anyone else? Yes, Mr. Berenson.
Thank you, sir. So you mentioned that 3 of the units will be adapted a little differently. Can you explain? I think you probably already did explain a lot of it, but can you explain what those differences are?
3 of them are fully accessible.
Fully accessible, and what does that mean by fully accessible?
Fully accessible means that they already have the cabinet fronts removed, the countertops are lowered. They're wheelchair accessible.
Okay.
If that makes it more clear on where it is. Everything has the full turning radiuses to where they're not blocked at any time to turn in the kitchen or in the bathroom or anything. So they are fully accessible.
Okay. And is this what we're seeing in the photo right here then as well?
Yes, that is one. It's either accessible or, like I say, these are all universal designs, so the cabinet fronts on the lower cabinets are made where they can be removed if somebody needs it. So if the accessible apartments are full, but yet somebody needed a wheelchair accessibility issue, those cabinet fronts can come off so that they do have the same ability to use any of the apartments that we build.
That's good to hear. I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Mr. Circo.
Thank you. I had a question. Now, the way you're going to build this is going to be north of the school, east to west, west to east, all the way across.
Yes.
Now, there's going to be a plot of land, out of probably Mr. Furborn, or I don't know. Is that plot of land that is going to be behind Price Chopper, south of you guys, and east of the school? That's not your property?
No.
That's going to be is that our property then, or?
It's actually a second parcel owned by the daycare, the property owner who owns the daycare.
Oh, okay, so Mary Ann has that parcel behind her?
She had at one time
Yeah.
planned an expansion to the back.
Okay, I didn't know that. That's why I was curious where that land was going to do. Okay, thank you.
Yes, Mr. Barber.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Mr. Sanders. One of the things we get about a little heartburn with multifamily is, you come in with the intent of doing it one way, and then it changes down the road. I can tell by your design that this is really designed as senior living, and it would be very difficult to change it from that. I could see that the design is put forth, so appreciate that. And I think it's a quality piece that you're putting together. The other comment that I have is, do we have to call it senior? Can we just call it 55 and older?
Believe me, I really feel that.
And I was going to ask, is this, I see this dead ends at the end, but that sunset, that would be back there. So this would have a straight shot two-way in. So, all right, thank you.
And that's why we did the street to curve a little bit. We're trying to keep it from being it'll be private, but we really don't want people cutting through there at a high rate of speed, especially with our residents cutting through the parking lot.
Oh, that would never happen.
Yes, sir. On the picture shown above me, I see the conference center or clubhouse, or whatever you want to call it, out there close to the street. Do you have a designated area for your property manager, a designated living quarters, or is
They
that?
will not live on site.
They will not live on site. Okay. All right.
They will have,
I misunderstood
residents will have, emergency 24-hour numbers to reach somebody if they need somebody. But
Okay.
we will not have somebody living on site here at this property.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Anyone else? Yes, Mrs. Abdelgawad.
I have a quick question, and I know this is just kind of a mock-up and not definitely what exactly will happen, but I'm just curious. I noticed also the community buildings way on the end of the road in this picture. Seems to me it might make more sense to have it more central, so it would be, people who live there would have better access without walking all the way from the other end of the road. Is that a possibility? Do you design it that way in any of your other properties?
Be a consideration. Typically, we like one near an entrance just because it's easier especially during lease up and stuff, that for people to come in and know exactly where to pull in to get into the office. But, I would think we would consider it. I mean, we have no,
Mr. Berenson?
Thank you, sir. While we're picking away at your plans here, I just noticed, I was looking at the community center too, and I'm sure this is just an artist rendering and maybe not exactly to scale and exactly the model, but would there be more parking available at at that area? It seems like there's just a few parking spots in front, or is that?
yeah, we would have more parking spaces in
Okay.
front than that. That's, again, I made sure our architect included the 5-foot wide sidewalks, because I wanted to make sure that, we wanted to make sure this is a walkability type of issue where people can walk Johnson Parkway or Sunset Lane to be able to walk to the local shopping or to the park, especially in good weather. And, we're always trying to encourage walkability in an area.
Sir, I'm on the board of the Chamber of Commerce over here. I'm on the board of the Chamber of Commerce, and we're constantly being told by our chamber executive director that there's a tremendous need for 55-plus housing in our community, period. Whether or not it's income adjusted or not, there's a great need for that. Is there any possibility you would move forward if the MHDC didn't come through for you at this time, and you would adjust that and the amenities to be kind of in an upward, somebody that has a decent retirement and could live there, but doesn't want to take care of things, doesn't want to have to mow the grass, wants to live in a maintenance-free environment? It would seem to me that as pretty as some of this is, from the artist renderings and the photos you have of others, it wouldn't necessarily have to be an MHDC-dependent community in order to be successful here.
It's not typically what we do.
Okay.
It's not part of our portfolio. We have a lot of real estate in our portfolio, but
I see.
high-end senior is not something we've got into at this point.
Okay, all right. I think, well, Mr. Barber, did you have something? I saw your finger go up quicker.
Well, I was just curious, and this is just a question. There's a lot of green space, it looks like. Was there any plans to have any other amenities outside the clubhouse? I didn't hear anything as far as the green space or outdoor areas or anything of that nature.
Like I say, we have a gazebo and picnic area. We're not adverse to like a community garden or anything else like that. I mean, we've got, again, I think some of that times we have to kind of see what the residents really want when you get a place open and really what they're into, and is there a demand for it? I mean, we would have no problem with it. Most of our senior properties, the first thing that happens was when some of the people move in. Well, can I put flowers out in front of my porch? Can I do this? And we enjoy that. That we want the ownership, and that's what you have with senior properties. They take ownership, and they take care of a property. I mean, it's well maintained.
Mr. Townsend.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm going to add to Mr. Zer's eyes twitching because we've moved beyond the letter of support and getting more P&Z. And I had a comment was brought up earlier regarding the roadway and the configuration of the lot layouts connected to the upcoming Sunset Road extension. I'm just curious if Mr. Carteret can detail out how, given the program activity that we're anticipating for the Hawk Ridge Park area and the traffic and such, and consideration for these residents, what is our city's policy or procedures or whatnot related to some sort of traffic mitigation, speed bumps or whatever you want to call them, what's the appropriate term, to kind of help mitigate that?
It's kind of a question for Mr. Crass, but we have always recommended against any kind of traffic mitigation measures like that. And NTSB would back this up in 100 pages, that they provide a significant false sense of security. People slow down for the bump, they get over the bump. If they're in a hurry, it makes them speed up even more in between bumps. It's an uncomfortable ride for folks. Plows have tangled with those for years and lost. So we recommend against that. Obviously, the only other two items that you could do is gate either end, and we would strongly recommend against that from an emergency services standpoint.
Okay. No, I just wanted to pose the question to see what things were out there as an option. Thank you.
Well, it's why we did the curve. At different times, when you've got a straight-through property like this, we've offset the buildings, trying to come up with other ways, because, we all want to mitigate this exact same thing you're asking without doing speed bumps, if at all possible.
I know all too well, the roundabout redirection is speeding through Sequoia right now, so thank you.
I was actually, with tongue in cheek, going to suggest a roundabout for the middle of this road. I'm sure that would take care of everything.
They have modified ones out there that NTSB will actually take seriously, so there are modified ones. Anyway, anybody have anything else? If not, thank you, sir. We appreciate your presentation tonight. Thank you very much. We'll now move on to item B, which is the proposed fiscal year 2020-21 budget.
Thank you, sir. As outlined with the council when we transmitted the proposed budget to you all, there are the opportunity at each of the work sessions up to final read of the budget. So this is the first of 3 work sessions that the council has the opportunity to speak with staff about, ask any questions on the budget that you might have. We put in front of your places this evening what we always do, because a significant amount of that conversation tends to center on available fund balance and uses of available fund balance. You'll remember when we proposed the budget, the mayor asked us to go ahead and put the 2 expansion item requests that I had not included into the budget to make sure that the budget was balanced. So the projected fund balance at the proposed budget time of presentation was $1,303,000. The attenuator is $28,390. The dump bed plow and spreader is $77,972. If the council were to still want those included, that brings available fund balance in the general fund to $1,197,625. City staff has been approached by 2 of the members to look into certain items possibly for usage of available fund balance. The mayor approached us to look at a single stationary license plate reader for the city. As we began to do our research on that, we found out that we actually spoke with, he had suggested the possibility of talking to the police chief from Leawood, thank you, sir. And we did, and they are very, very pleased with their system, and they have an overall system of them that incorporates both the use of stationary license plate readers as well as cameras throughout the city. The chief has had some experience with KCPD where they have actually used the entire system of cameras to track somebody who had done a random drive-by shooting, and they were able to identify that person and get them. So the detective unit, which seemed to be the logical group to get this particular assignment, along with Captain Wilson, are looking into an overall program and cost for the council. We will hopefully have that in place for you all's review by the next work session. It would not, the 3rd work session is actually after first read of the budget. We'd like to get that to you as quickly as possible. The second item that city staff has been asked to research is, and actually, gosh, a couple of years ago, I think, sir, and then repeated by Councilmember Berenson just perhaps a month ago, I think, subject to correction, was the possibility of purchasing the land that is owned by PAC across from, on this side where we tore the 2 dilapidated business offices down. So we are in contact with both PAC and his real estate agent to try to figure out exactly where. Several years ago we looked into it and it was prohibitively expensive. We now know that there has been some change in Mr. PAC's mindset relative to all of the buildings that he owns. So we're trying to figure out a conservatively high amount and then obviously we would go into negotiations if that was a possibility. At the time that Councilmember Berenson approached me, staff was actually and had actually done a tour of the Russell Karting facility from the standpoint of a number of different types of uses, including an expansion to animal control. It would certainly correct our mobile command center permanent storage issue. Obviously, staff has significant storage issues. We're running out way too many lockers. Unfortunately, the Russell Karting building sold in the interim before we could bring that kind of a proposal to the council. We were also kind of interested in the land that was attached to that as well for future uses for the council. But those are the items that we're working on now, and our goal is at the next work session to be able to give you a lot more detail, both on the land, possible land purchase down here, as well as the license plate reader / camera program / system. That concludes staff report on this item, sir.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Holman, do you have a question?
Yeah, one other item that may be a consideration for us. I'm, like most, I think everyone else here, I'm loath to drive that fund balance reserve down very much, but the all-inclusive playground at Hawkridge Park is closing in on its final goal where we might be able to build that. Rough numbers, and Mr. Fearborn, correct me if I'm wrong, but we were looking at, if we secure that grant, maybe having 600 of about the 850 that we need, and talking with both the chairman of the Parks Board and Parks staff, they may have a donation in the range of about 150, which would leave us right at 100,000 short to finish that. And so I'm kind of waiting to see if we get some feedback. I get some feedback from them in the next week or two. Might be something where we could go ahead and have all the funds secured if we were to put that final money in and have that park built pretty quick, as opposed to having, and people's mindset when the weather turns cold is not going to be on that park like we would want it, and we probably have to wait another, I'm guessing, 6 months before we could secure those kind of funds unless we just had somebody come in. So something for consideration is a possibility. I'm hoping that Mr. Troutman will have some more news for me in the next couple of weeks. Councilmember Barber and I met with him last week and talked a little bit about it. So they're still kind of working on some things and hopefully going to have a little bit more solid information for us. But it's something for consideration for us at least, sir.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else have anything? Mr. Burke.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Question for Mr. Fearborn. Earlier in the year, I had contacted you with information or just inquiries about traffic calming for streets such as Sunset that connect two of our major thoroughfares. Not necessarily in the type that would be where you'd have to drive over, but places where the road is narrowing in places where it forces people to, instead of having a large, broad road, it forces people to slow down to go through a narrowing at different places along the way. And that presentation that we just looked at looked like a situation that would be a prime situation to narrow the road at places on the ends in the likelihood of slowing people down through areas. And I don't know if this would require a study to do like a traffic calming study of what feasibilities would be to go with our walkability rates in our city. I think those kind of things tend to go together.
I can tell you that anecdotally, Mr. Crass has spoken many, many times about the need for road diets. Sunset has come up that it could be half the size. He'd love to see that thing carved down to about Kelly Road so that everybody was that cautious on that thing, because they get some speeds up down there. It was built awful wide. We've even brought it up for 58 Highway, for those areas on 58 Highway where you go for a significant amount of space where there is, the question always comes up, why is there a middle lane there? when there's nothing to turn into and it's a wide road, would that be a good candidate for something like that as well? Fox Ridge Drive comes up a lot as far as the reverse is concerned, but we do know that that median provides a significant traffic calming measure that I think some other folks would like to see be even more, because people tend to use Fox Ridge Drive at higher rates of speed than are certainly posted. So there are a number of roads within the city that could benefit from a traffic calming type study. I can certainly get with Mr. Crass to get an estimate, and we can put that on for council consideration as well.
Mr. Townsend, do you have something?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It was just a general question regarding to the land purchase. Would that also include, best and brightest use for that in addition to the cost of the presentation?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Oh, Mr. Circo, sorry.
Okay, I did have a question. Of course, we had a situation come up 6-8 weeks ago. We weren't counting on Maple there when that road kind of caved in. I think we were working on that project. I don't know if that put us significantly back on our budget, that we had to go in there now and refill all that, put the new sidewalks in, what we're doing now on Maple. Is that interfering with our budget at all, being happened this quick? We didn't know it was going to happen.
Not at all, sir, because we actually had that in as a project for next year. We simply had to accelerate it.
Okay.
Ms. Abdel, go ahead.
Quick question, Mr. Fearborn. So knowing that we still are in the middle of the COVID pandemic and maybe need to be cautious about spending away our available fund balance, I'm curious, what would kind of be your magic number that you would like to be left alone in there, based on times and unpredictable future and et cetera?
$1,300,000. But I don't think that's going to happen. I feel I was actually, if we remove COVID, I was significantly more concerned last year about making sure the number was kind of crazy high. With COVID in there, and so if we were going into this year without COVID out there, I would be saying, let's do some good things with this available fund balance. I still think we have the flexibility to do some good things with this fund balance. And all of the council, as always, you're just jewels in this. You recognize one-time expenditures and the value of one-time expenditures, and you're very thoughtful in those kind of considerations. I would say having this would not be out of the question for me this year.
Having it, like having that way.
Yeah, halving it.
Okay.
Poor choice of words.
Yeah.
Yeah. If the council were to spend down to $650,000 to $750,000, I would. If you didn't, I'd be overjoyed. But if you did that, I could just. I could certainly still be smiling. Boy, that's a tough question for me.
If nobody has anything else, we'll move on to the next item, which is item C, related to the municipal judge.
Thank you, sir. The judge's contract is up on February 1. I bring this to you tonight because if it were the council's decision to go ahead and put out an RFQ, and I do not bring this to you in any way recommending that, but if it was your decision to put out an RFQ for the municipal court judge, then we would need to be beginning that process now. If you choose and tell me to stay with where we're at, I will be putting together a staff recommendation for, as you know, we pay the judge a set amount, and that amount gets set, and then it's static for a 2-year period. I would be getting you all the details of that, and then traditionally you have asked for a meeting with the judge prior to the end of the contract year, usually before the end of the calendar year, actually. I think last time we either met in late November or December with him, just to see how things are going, what's going on, and especially if that was your decision to go Route 2, it has been, he has been very good with COVID-19. The courts have been challenged, and he has been very innovative in making sure that things continued to move forward and what needed to be seen, and those folks who needed to be seen were. He's been very, very fair in his dealings with people who he can't see, because you know that's pretty intimate to that process, but he's been very good about it. So I'm here tonight to just ask the council which way you all would like to go. Would you like me to issue an RFQ or not?
Mr. Holman.
Thank you, sir. I say no. I say we stay with Judge Nigro. He's been an impeccable judge since we hired him. He has an exceptional reputation, so much so that after we hired him, Belton hired him as their judge. I've yet to meet anyone that has had a negative thing to say about Judge Nigro, and I agree. He's been incredibly innovative and thoughtful in that position. That's one of those jobs, I guess like a lot of them, he could just go up there and bang his gavel and say what the fine is, but he takes it so much farther than that. I've been very pleased with his performance, and I think we should stay with, when we've got something good, I think we should stay with it.
Amen to that. Mr. Barber.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I believe when we had the same thing happen with our city prosecutor, I think the council said if the city prosecutor wanted to continue with the city and there really wasn't going to be any changes, why make a change? And I kind of feel the same way with the judge. If he wants to continue to be our judge and not really any changes on what he would need, then I would support not putting it out for bid. And certainly with COVID and everything, this is probably not any kind of, and I'm very pleased with the judge, but this isn't any time to make any changes right now. So that'd be my suggestion.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Abdelgawad?
I was just going to say I agree with Mr. Councilman Holman's comments. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Berenson? Same?
Same, I would agree as well.
Okay. Mr. Townsend? Mr. Jacobson? Mr. Burke? Mr. Circo?
I'd like to add to that. I've been in the courtroom on a few Thursday nights to watch Judge Nigro and how he holds his court. He is very compelling to the people here. He's very open and nice. He's very easy. He explains to them what's going on, and he takes his time with them. He does a very good job of keeping order and keeping it stable here in the courtroom as he takes on each case.
What'd you get a ticket for?
Huh?
What'd you get a ticket for?
No, I didn't get a ticket. No.
But he fully explained it to him.
Before we go farther, I plead the fifth. But I agree.
I think you have your marching orders there. Mr.
I do, sir. Just to very quickly address Councilmember Holman's remarks, I have heard, in fairness, I have heard some minor negative comments about him, but it's usually in the parking lot on court night as they're leaving.
Yeah. All right. Thank you. So next item on our agenda is manpower study.
Thank you, sir. The restricted revenue fund that is in the proposed budget that is in front of the council, you will notice a line item that is a compensation classification study. The city manager would propose to the council that line be amended to a manpower study. At this time, we are relying heavily on the compensation classification study that Mark does on a regular basis, and we have been using that. We will eventually, at some point in the future, need to do a compensation classification study, but as far as a component of of the classification study, there's always a manpower element. We know that we have a significant issue and looming issues relative to our splendid boots on the ground folks, specifically our dispatchers, our police officers, our parks and recreation workers, and our public works folks who are out there every single day. The city is growing. We continue to hear developers coming in. Yes. And we continue, I mean, here very shortly, we have dirt being turned on a 400-unit apartment building that's going to put 1,000 people into this city. We have not brought on anybody new. We have stood at 101 FTEs. Now we've shuffled duties and we've changed a position with a specialist position. That's your latest one, but we have not brought in people to support us as the city has grown. And the time is coming. If the council approves that, or I get a thumbs up tonight, we will modify, we will not amend, but we will modify the presentation of the proposed budget for your final budget. That line would now read manpower study. We would begin the process immediately by putting out an RFQ for a firm with the hope that, not the hope, with the necessary need being we get a complete and good report back on manpower needs for the city, which we then use as our guiding document in April 2021 at the next municipal election to put a use tax on the ballot to use the funds from the use tax for specific manpower. And history will show us that if we show them we are going to use this money to bring on the following number of police officers, the following number of public works personnel, etc., then it has a vastly improved chance of passing. We're not using it to supplement any funds. We're doing new things and bringing new people, much needed new people in with that use of funds. So if I get the nod from the council tonight, we will immediately begin the process of putting out an RFQ for that study.
Sounds like a good plan to me. Anybody else have any thoughts or ideas? Oh yeah, do you have any ballpark figure on that one? 60?
On the study
75?
itself,
Yeah,
40 to 50.
40 to 50, okay.
Because we're limiting it. It's not organization-wide. I am going to specifically target boots on the ground people.
Okay.
That one leads to another, but right now, without additional personnel, support staff the support staff comes down the line.
I will let the board know, or the council know, that there's a lot of talk amongst the mayors. For those of us that don't have that type of taxing arrangement, they're moving in that direction. And this is specifically the kind of thing they're doing, is targeting a specific use for that income. Anybody else? Oh, yeah, Mr. Holman.
Yeah, something that may be a little bit unique to us, in addition to the growth, we think of the growth of people and houses, which certainly need additional resources, people to pave streets, police officers to respond, that kind of thing. We've also added a significant number of new buildings and amenities to the city that we haven't added any people for. Plus, we know that the growth is going to continue. It's not going to level off. It's not going to go backwards. So you've got kind of a trifecta factor there in the need for those people, and that's, I think, a reasonable source to ask for that funding to come from.
Thank you. Everybody's good with that? Okay.
Thank you all very much.
And that brings us to item E, other. Does anybody have anything else? Mr. Feuerborn, you don't count. Anybody else have anything? Oh, Mr. Feuerborn, go ahead.
Thank you, sir. Like Urban Outfitters, unfortunately, I have to report to the City Council that our first pass at the build grant, we were not awarded a build grant. This is our first pass only. The heavy lifting on this has been done. We'll make some tweaks to it. I'll be very careful with my wording here. The three groups, you'll remember this was a partnership between the county, City of Belton, and us. We were asking for $25 million in U.S. Department of Transportation grant funds. The estimated cost was $32.68 million, with Belton has already done a $3 million amount to the outer belt roads that were going to be associated with this particular widening. We would be putting up $3 million, the county would be putting up $3 million to make up the difference between that funding. It will be the exact same sort of a split when we go for it next year. We'll actually be turning it in March next year because they think they're going to get back on the normal cycle. This was something of an odd cycle. We were very disappointed because as late as the week before the awards were announced, so 2 weeks ago, we were hearing from Representative Hartzler's office that the Department of Transportation had looked very favorably on this particular grant application. So it just looked like all of the stars were aligning on this thing. We also knew that the other metropolitan grant application had received one of the bigger numbers, analysis numbers in all of this, is the cost benefit that's associated with it, because the Bill grant is specifically for future economic development and the number of people that are involved in this as far as how it impacts folks. So we were up against I always have to be very careful about this. I keep wanting to call it the trolley train project. It's the streetcar project downtown. Our cost benefit ratio was 3.72. The streetcar project was 1.59. So we thought this thing was a shoe-in. The streetcar project got it. They got our money. I'll just leave that on the table. So we are not only applying for the Bill grant next March, but prior to that, we were using all of the exact same materials, reforming them, and applying. The three groups together are applying for the United States federal dollar infrastructure COVID funding, which is strictly for infrastructure as well. Our plan of attack is to figure out a way to actually get Senator Blunt at the table in front of us, looking us in the eye. That concludes staff report on this item, sir.
Yes. Yes, it does. Yeah, well, we're all disappointed that that didn't come to fruition. And I won't say any more either. Go ahead. Did you have something else?
Well, my question to the team immediately after finding out is I did ask them how many trolley train fatalities there were in the last 5 years, and apparently there have been none. However, we've had a significant number out on I-49, so I'm thinking about that being my lead with Senator Blunt when we said
You know, we had that one just the other night. As it broadens out there, they came through the wires there right in front of the Southview project. It was pretty bad. Anybody else have any? Yes, Mr. Townsend.
Yes, it does hurt. Listening to the my mic, I turned it off because I didn't want to say something out of turn. Yes, it does hurt to listen to and hear how some other projects do seem to get favorable consideration because they're in a sexy part of town. I'll just use those terms. But kudos to staff, keeping up the good fight and continue to fight, continue to put us on the map because as the gentleman that was here this evening, there's a reason they keep coming forward to this area. It's because of what we're doing. So keep going, keep doing it. I'll keep doing what you all have put me in a position to do to try to continue to help move that a little forward. And hopefully we'll get a streetcar here somewhere, I guess. Thank you.
Okay, well, if there's nothing else, we'll stand adjourned. Thank you all.